Jenkins Boatworks presents The Haven 12.5 Deadwood Part 2.
I finally got a little bit of a template cut out. I'm just going to talk for a couple of minutes about how I did this. In the last video, I'd figured out that this angle, pretty much here that I'm pointing right at, was 130 degrees. And I'm still fairly confident that's right, although I'm not sure that I've got a straight line from here back down to the transom. So I may need to adjust this just a little bit because my transom angle may not be exactly the same as the plan. And my plywood wasn't quite big enough, so you see I've got a little piece that's cut off back there. I may even piece that in just so that I know that I've got the right thing. And I have to saw off the tail of the keel, which is going to make me very nervous. I've got a line drawn there, and then it's a little high. I may just take a plane and plane it down. I think that's going to be the thing to do. We got 14 inches of snow today, so I have my two helpers here. They're happy to be inside. Anyway, so I couldn't figure out how I was going to get that curve off of the back of the keel so that I could figure out what that was like. I could draw the triangle okay, that worked out fine, which is what I did at first. And then we just took poster board, and my wife helped me hold it up there and tape it. Just took poster board and would put it up on the bottom of the hull next to the keel, and once it wasn't down on the side of the boat anymore, then we'd cut it off and just tape pieces together, which is what we did. So in other words, we had her held down here, right, and then taped just with masking tape down on there. And every time it'd get too much up like this, then we'd cut it off this way vertically, and then just tape another piece on there, hold it on there, tape it, and then tape it to the piece that was on there before. So you can see here where like that piece was taped on, that was taped on, and this is on the edge of this 2x8. So you can see it's got quite a bit of curve to it. I cut it out. Then once I cut it out, I was able to draw it off on the plywood, which is still sitting over here. A picture's worth 1,000 words with this stuff, so that's why I'm doing the video. You can see here where I had my straight line on there, and then I just took the jigsaw and I took that curve and drew it on there and cut it out. And the result is that I've got a decent jig now that matches that curve of the keel so that I can start gluing up my Douglas fir, which is what that is over there that I'm using as a table. So the next thing I got to do is figure out the width here. I don't want to glue up more than I have to. Anyway, that's where we're at on the Deadwood today. More as we get more done. I'm working on the Deadwood. This is the book that Maynard Bray put together, and quite honestly, it's pretty good. Here on page 50, we get some description of how to glue up the Deadwood and use some Douglas fir to do that. So you can even see here we got this template that he shows that you can make, which is what I made, and we had in the first part of the video. So we've got that on there. Now the next thing I wanted to do, oh by the way, I cut off the tail of the keel back here, and you can't see it because I got it covered up right now, but I took the sanding wheel on the angle grinder and took this down. This white oak's tough stuff to get through, but worked out pretty good, and I think I got a pretty fair angle coming up. I just laid a straight edge against the transom up there until I finally got it down. At a point, I was scared to keep using the angle grinder. It's pretty aggressive, so I ended up using the orbital sander with some 80 grit on it, and finally just got it down to where I think it should be pretty good. So I think we're fine on that. The next thing I wanted to do was try to figure out, I'm going to cut some of this Douglas fir. Those are 2x8s there, so really about 7 1/4 or so wide. Up at the forwardmost part of the deadwood were about 6 to 6 1/4 inches. So I wanted to figure out if I can cut some of the Douglas fir first before I glue it up. I figured that'd be a help, so I taped together some poster board. It's pretty lightweight stuff, and taped it on here. And then I just took my fingers, my hand, and just ran down here and made a crease on the edges on both sides, just pushing it down real hard so that I'm going to get an exact width and replica of the width of the oak going back. And you can even see I've made an indentation here where the centerboard trunk comes back. Now I'm a little long on this. I'm about 13 inches from here back to here, and I believe we should be more in the neighborhood of 11.5 to 12, but I'd rather have a little extra glued up and ready to go. You can always cut it down. And I know I'm even long back here on the tail, because remember, we're going to have that close to 3.5 inch white oak stern post, which quite honestly I think that's the piece I'm going to use sitting right over there on the ground. And that's one of those pieces I'd milled out of that tree. So that's kind of cool. Okay, so I started cutting up these pieces of Douglas fir to build the Deadwood. And you can see that on each one of them I've cut out that middle part that has to be for the centerboard slot. And I thought it would be easier to just do that with each board as opposed to waiting until I had the whole thing all together. So I've strayed from the book a little bit in that regard. It looks like they glued it all up. Something I'm noticing here in the book, they show gluing up five pieces, and of course I don't know if they're using dimensional lumber like we'd get at the lumber yard. My stuff's 1.5 inches thick. But what I do notice is up here in this picture here, it looks like up at the point up here he doesn't have enough wood. So I don't know what the thinking is there, if you piece in a little piece up there at the top or whatever. I'm getting ready to do my 5th piece, and it occurs to me that I'm not going to make it to this peak. I just took the ruler and measured from this 4th board up, and I'm just a little better than 3 inches. Well, if they're 1.5 thick, I've got a problem. You can see where the curve for the keel is on there, and how severe that is. It's actually going to go all the way up into that 2nd board. See, that's taller than just the 1.5 inch thickness of the 1st board. And then I've kind of got it set back here. Now, I've been rather generous with the wood doing this because I just don't want to make it too small. I don't want to find out that I got to cut it out to fit and I've got a problem. The other thing that I've done is I've tapered these in anticipation of it coming aft and the keel being more narrow and then the Deadwood as well. I'm liking the pieces. I feel pretty good about them. But I feel like I'm probably a little too wide now that I'm getting up to the top here. And so I'm going to use this other piece of Douglas fir that I've got that's a 1x6. It's about 5 1/4 wide. I think that's going to be more than enough. And something else I did is I paid attention to the station. So like there's 17, 18, 19. So see, we're going aft. And I've even been occasionally writing them up on here, 17, 18, 19. And my thinking is I can look inside the keel mold. So see here, station 16, which is just after the centerboard trunk. So I know I'm right. And I even still have my measurements down in there. 6 3/8 there, 4 3/8 up at 18. This really gets pretty narrow, and that tells me that I'm probably pretty wide on this, especially as I'm getting up toward the top, because you want it to match up with the way the lead keel is going to come back down through here. So I imagine I'm going to have a lot that I'm going to have to, I'll probably just power plane it off of there once I get it fitted. But it also tells me that I should be able to get away with using this 2x6. I'm also thinking I'm going to drill holes through here and run dowel rod through here before I try to glue it up, just so that it isn't moving all over the place when I try to clamp it together. We'll see how that looks here in a minute too. More later. All right, I finally got these glued up. There is a board underneath here that's just a 2x6 that I'm using to just hold, use as a table almost, and everything's clamped to it, but it's not part of it. So I've glued this in two pieces, in two sections. I've got the bottom three from here up, and I did dowel rod it. I've got dowel rod in here and here. Those were fairly loose just because of the drill bit that I had, but that was okay because it allowed me to double check it and pull the dowel rod in and out of it. And it was tight enough that when I went to go to glue it up, it kept them from slipping around all over the place. This is the top half of it. I did wind up putting another little piece up on the very top of it because it looked like that peak just wasn't going to make it. And I ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces even, and they showed, I think, 5 in the book. So I think I may have overbuilt this, but I'm okay with that because you can cut it down, but it's hard to add to. The other thing I think I'm going to do is we'll definitely fill in with the stern post, and I just can cut that to whatever dimension I need to. Once these set up, and I use thickened epoxy, I got my Total Boat thickener there. I painted it on with pretty thickened epoxy to glue it together, and then stuck the dowel rods in, and then took and clamped it up. Now I've got it in two pieces because I don't know how difficult this is going to be to cut. I don't have a very big bandsaw, and I may actually have to go on a hunt for some wood shop somewhere where I can use a large bandsaw to cut these down. But we're a ways away from that because I'm going to want to have a better pattern once I get the lead ballast keel fitted, and then I'll know how exactly big this is supposed to be. So anyway, I got a new picture I don't think anybody had seen. Hung that in here. There's my sign my daughter gave me for Christmas a year ago, and then just got this new picture framed and put up. All right. Thanks, Jamestown Distributors, for your help with my paint. I'm getting ready to do my paint, and we'll do probably some video about that as well. But for now, we got the Deadwood glued up.
Like and subscribe, and look for us on Facebook as Jenkins Boat Works. Thanks for watching.